Beautiful morning, children. Welcome back to our social class. So, children, what was the last chapter? Yes, we discussed about the first two world wars, that is, the world from 1914 to 1945. We discussed about the causes and about what happened at the end of the Second World War. So, today we are going to start chapter number 15 towards freedom. So, what are all the things happened before we got a freedom struggle? So, shall we start? So, you all know that India has always been famous for its spices, textiles, jewelry, and pearls. The Arabs were among the first to come to India for trade. So, they invaded India for trade. And the Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, and the British followed the Arabs. And the British emerged as the most powerful among them. And they traded to a company called the English East India Company. So this English East India Company, they bought goods cheaply from India and sold them abroad at high prices. Okay, so if they buy from the farmers for 20 rupees, they would sell abroad for 50 to 80 rupees. Okay, so this resulted in huge profits for the English East India Company, and little by little, the company established control over the whole of India. And taking advantage of the lack of unity among the Indians, the British conquered large parts of India and established their rule. So our next topic is discontent among the Indians. So once the British was firmly established in India, they exploited the farmers, traders, craftsmen, and the rulers of the local kingdom. And the farmers were made to pay very high taxes. And even during floods and droughts, the farmers had to pay their share of taxes. And they were forced to grow indigo, a plant which is a source of indigo dye and cotton. So these were brought at very low rates and sold at very high rates in England and other countries. So thus farmers in India became poorer and many died due to starvation. Okay, so they just drained India of all our wealth and natural resources by selfish economic policies. And the taxes collected by the government were utilized by the British to pay them salaries. So next, the cheaper mill-made cloth was imported into India from England, and as a result, the handloom industry also suffered a lot. And lakhs of weavers became unemployed, and they suffered the same fate as the farmers. And they did not allow the Indians to open mills and factories, and the Indian traders were not allowed to trade in the item of their choice. And the Indian rulers and princes were also unhappy with the British. And a law was passed by the British which stated that if a ruler did not have a male child, then upon the death of the ruler, his kingdom would be handed over to the British. So, by using unjust and unfair means, the British sought to expand their hold over India, and the dissatisfaction and anger of most Indians led them to the revolt of 1857. Okay, and many Indians opposed introduction of Western culture in India, and the Hindu laws of property was changed to enable a Christian convert to receive a share of an ancestral property. And moreover, they followed a system of racial discrimination, and the British considered them as superiors. So they advocated a judicial system based on the principle of equality, but in actual practice, it was biased. Okay. So next is about the revolt against the British. So ever since the coming of the British, people in different parts of India had been protesting against the unfair policies. So there was no unity in their protest, and it was only in 1857 the revolt broke out. And this was, or they call it as a Great Revolt of 1857. Okay, or the Sepoy Mutiny. So it was an important event in a struggle for freedom, and the revolt was started by the Indian soldiers serving in the British Army in India, and a new rifle called the Enfield had been introduced in India. And rumors spread that the grease used in the bullets was made from the fats of cows and pigs. And soldiers had to bite off the greased wrapper of the bullet before loading it in the rifle. So, this was against religious sentiments of both the Hindus and the Muslim soldiers. And they refused to use these rifles and they revolted. So, the revolt started at Meerut and they soon spread to the larger parts of northern and the central India. So, farmers, craftsmen, and other sections of the society also joined the revolt. So the soldiers declared the last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar their leader, and the revolt was led by Nana Sahib and Tantia Tope at Kanpur, and Rani Lakshmibai at Jhansi, and Begum Hasrat Mahal at Awadh. So the British suppressed the first war of independence, and many factors were responsible for the failure of the revolt. Okay, and it did not spread to all parts of India, and Indian soldiers did not have sufficient money and good weapons, and the revolt was not organized properly. On the other hand, the British soldiers were well equipped with modern weapons and were very well organized. And after the revolt had been suppressed, many Indians was either killed or they were put into prison. And the rule of English East India Company ended in 1858, and the administration of India was taken over by the government of England. And however, the Indian princess was allowed to rule over their own territories. Okay, so British army freed Delhi, the epicenter of the revolt, and Bahadur Shah Zafar was tied and sent to Rangoon. And his children were killed, and the control of Delhi and the imprisonment of Bahadur Shah Zafar broke the backbone of the mutiny. And Lucknow was recaptured in 1858, and Rani Lakshmibai was killed, and Tantia Tope was captured and hanged to death. So the revolt suppressed very badly. So next we have the social and religious reformers. So the British introduced a modern education in India, and gradually the educated Indians introduced many social and religious reforms. And reformers such as Radharam Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and Debendranath Tagore were active during this period, and they strongly protested against social practices such as sati, killing female babies, child marriage, and the caste system. So, what is sati? It is a custom of widow burning herself on the funeral pyre of a husband, and they also encourage widow remarriage and education of women. So the next one is rise of nationalism. So what do you mean by nationalism? It is nothing but love and devotion for one's country. So the educated Indians realized that the British wanted to keep India poor and backward, and this realization united the Indians, and slowly the feeling of unity or nationalism grew stronger. And the growing feeling of nationalism resulted in the formation of the Indian National Congress in the year 1885. So the Indian National Congress was formed by an Englishman named Alan Octavian Hume. Okay, so he's shortly known as A.O. Hume. So its first session was held at Bombay, and it was attended by 72 delegates from all over India. And the president of the session was Omesh Chandra Banerjee. So therefore, the Congress met every year in different cities, and it slowly became very strong, and it awakened the spirit of unity among the Indians. At the same time, it requested the government to introduce reforms to improve the living conditions of the people, and the growing popularity of the Congress worried the British. So, to suppress the rising spirit of nationalism, that is, feeling of oneness, the government passed many strict laws, and they also used the policy of divide and rule to prevent the Hindus and the Muslims from uniting. Okay, so what were the main points which we discussed today? Yes, the British exploited all sections of the society, and as a result, what happened? The revolt of 1857 broke out, and it spread to the larger parts of northern and the central India, and the revolt was suppressed due to many reasons. We saw the reasons, and thereafter the administration of India was taken over by the government of England, and many reformers worked for social and religious reforms. And the Indian National Congress was formed in the year 1885, and it inspired the people to fight against the British. Yes, due to the rise of nationalism among the Indians. So, children, please complete all your work on time and write with legible handwriting. Okay, thank you and have a nice day.